I'm Apostle Wayne Redding.
Andrea Fay, Barbara Dansby.
I am Matilda Barber.
My name's Brian Blackman.
My name is Robert White.
My name is Raymond Wilkins.
My name is Jacqueline Walker, and I like to be called Jackie.
Well, I'm Ryan Mason as well.
My name is Myron Taylor.
I'm Dr. Treva Bostic.
My name is Lakita Mason.
My name is Marilyn Gorey.
My name is Mildred Powell.
My name is Jerry Boards.
My name is Gregory Campbell.
My name is Donita Thompson.
You know it's Coach K, but Richard Paul Kelly.
My name is Betsy Hughes Pearson.
I'm Lorraine Miles.
Hey, my name is Celeste Neely.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth. Middle initial E stands for Evelyn, which was my grandmother's name.
Mingo.
I'm Tamara Young.
My name's James Arthur III.
My name is Willie Turner, Willie D. Turner, because there are other Willie Turners. Mine's spelled with a Y, though.
Well, my name is Rebecca Crooms.
Perry Washington.
My name is Sherry Peak.
My name is Marilyn Collier.
The things that we have been taught to celebrate, I don't think it has registered that deeply with the entire community here. Just like we look at June 19th, that wasn't taught in our school. Because if you don't know your past, you can't celebrate it presently. Neither can you really know where you're going in the future.
One of the things I've learned, you can look at your grandmother or grandfather, or maybe you knew your great-grandmother, and you say, well, I wonder about them, but you never ask. You never ask anybody. You need to know where you came from in order to know where you're going. What I found out, I remember studying the Civil War when I was in grade school. And I thought, boy, I wonder, after I started researching my family history, I found out I had two great-grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers who fought in the Civil War. Two of them are on the statue at the Civil War Memorial in Washington, D.C. How would I have found that out? I'm proud of that. There are people who live their whole lives and never turn around to say, what's important about those people that came before me? Well, a lot of blacks were slaves. That's true. That's true, but they made it out. They didn't give up. They didn't give in. On my mother's side, my great-great-great-grandmother, her story is she walked from the mountains of North Carolina to Indiana with several of her children. What does that say about the kind of people I come from? Your people probably did something similar, but how would you ever know that? And you can be proud of that and know that you're trying to make a difference, but they already made a difference for you. You owe them. You owe them. The people that came before you, you owe them to be the best that you can be. You owe them to contribute to your community. You owe them to see not just yourself, but other people and how you can help.
But I love to tell the story about particularly my maternal family. In 1954, my great-great-grandmother died. She was 100 years old. So she was born in slavery. And she used to tell us that when I was about 6 to 8 years old, she'd have us sit around her bed and she would tell us about how she remembers when the Yankees came to that camp. She remembered them riding in the camp, And the way she told those stories, kind of like I was watching a movie, And I share that with There's generation. How many generations is there to share that kind of thing, you know? And I think I was blessed to have lived to see, let her live, you know, for me to get a chance to know her, and for me to be able to tell these stories to the mentees, you know, the children that I'm mentoring, and to my children and my grandchildren, so forth and everything. That's one of the stories of my life. I can integrate that in some of my sermons, and the thing about it, when I tell it to audiences, black and white, I tell them about how there she was sitting there with whips. She would let us see her back, you know, the whips on her back. And she would show that, and I noticed my older brothers, who were teenagers at the time, they would be sore, you know, upset. They were mad because whoever did that to her, you know, it's terrible. But I noticed her face, there was no animosity, no regrets and no animosity, no hate about her past. And that has done an awful lot for me today. That seeing how she responded to her past, to much rugged than anything that I've ever been in and may never go through, that we can endure anything. We can go through it and still come out all right, you know, without animosity. That's it.
When I was growing up, one of the things that I looked to were basically relatives. Even though I was not raised in Anderson, I knew about my relatives who lived here. I knew that I had an uncle named Raymond Wilson. Unfortunately, he died when I came back to Anderson. He died, but he was a policeman. We now have 3 generations of Wilson policemen in Anderson today. Those are things to be proud of. There are things to look at and say, we helped make this community. And we did. My grandmother was born here, on my mother's side was born here in 1898. And not only did she have Raymond, but she also had John Wilson. If you've seen the mural over on 14th Street, Jumpin' Johnny Wilson and his friend, Carl Erskine, if you've seen that mural, that could tell you what kind of effect he had on this community, and definitely had it on me.
Why did I come here?
Yes, why did you come here?
Economics. That is almost, I mean, that's not totally it, but that's mostly what it was. I grew up, it's going to throw me back to tell about my background again. I grew up on a 80-acre farm in southern Alabama, and we made a good living. That's what I tell everybody. When I grew up, in comparison to other black families in the South, I guess we were kind of a upper class, if you want to call it that, because many of them had it hard. They didn't have anything. We had a farm. We owned our own farm. And we had 5 boys and 1 girl in our family. And I was next to the youngest. And none of those boys wanted to continue a life there on that farm. They all went to, one of them he became a manager in a truck driver's company, and the other one went to construction. And one of the other boys went into the ministry, and he was kind of like a traveling evangelist, couldn't be much. And my father kind of left there with that farm on his own. And when I was old enough to see the books, I saw on that land we made enough money to pay all of the bills. And once the bills were paid, we had no money. That happened too many years. So my mother came here they had a National Church of God conference here every year. So she came here back in the late 50s to one of those. She, having grown up in Newark, New Jersey herself, knew that she didn't want to have her children to immigrate to a large city. And she suggested this would be a wonderful city to raise a family. And she invested that idea into us. So when I came here and visited, I planned on coming back here to go to school. That's how it happened. So I came here, and right off the bat, I was working in high school, but I had a job making money. I had a job. While I was working in high school, I was working at General Motors. And to me, wow, coming from the farm, you understand what I mean? From making a living to making money that I could save to go to college. So that was, wow, that's great for me. That's great for anyone, you know, economics. It really did. A lot of my peers were running off. They didn't like going to Vietnam. They went to Canada and different places. But I decided to stay and serve my country and trust in the Lord. And He saw me through it. I got a chance to visit 7 European countries, 2 in Africa, and 3 in Asia. Saw the world, you know. In fact, I tell everybody that I spent 18 months in Europe, Munich, Germany. I tell everybody, when I was in high school, I did not like history. But when I was in the service, visiting the Deutsches Museum, I learned more about my own country there, than the whole time that I spent in school. It's just an awakening, you know.
Back then, when I was coming up, things were still kind of segregated, even though, you know, segregation had ended. But that building housed all the activities for the young people and minorities. There was a tennis court there. There was a swimming pool there. There was free swimming lessons every summer. The 4-H came in and did 4-H classes. They had sewing classes. It was extraordinary. And it was just like and they had qualified directors, people, college graduates there running the whole center. The upstairs had a basketball court, and then on the weekends it was, they had like senior dances for the seniors or the kids. I mean, you had your own community.
When I was in college, the civil rights movement was in full swing. Martin Luther King, all those persons that were involved. And Kentucky had been a slave state, in case you didn't know. But what I also found out was there were a lot of people in Kentucky who were never slaves, including my grandmother's people. But they had to work really hard, and they had to be really conscientious about what they did and who they associated with. The real issue is there's always going to be need for freedom fighters. We can't just say, well, they've done it now, it's over. We have to just pass it on, because discrimination is still alive and well.
At age 15, a friend of mine, Doyle, we call him Doyle Davis at the time, but it's Doyle Moore, Reverend Moore's father. He was in a band, I believe, at the time with my brothers. But anyway, he asked me, why don't I go to the boys' club with him? That was before it became Boys and Girls Club. On 10th Street, as a boys club, I knew nothing about it. So I went down there one time to visit. And I think the membership at that time was like 25 cents, 50 cents. I couldn't afford it at that time. But later I came back, I got the money, came back. I enjoyed learning how to shoot billiards and playing ping pong and so forth. And so I came up with the required fee to join. And I was there almost every day. I just enjoyed it. That summer, Mr. Wilbur Hall got me into playing softball. I always loved baseball. So this was my first time playing softball. And before the season was over with, Mr. Hall was gone. And I was left coaching the team. And I was only, like I said, 15, 16, and the rest of the players were older.
Yeah.
But something was in me to be a leader at that point because of my brothers and sisters that I had to help raise. Mr. Humphrey was the director at the Boys Club at that time. He got an interest in me, but Mr. Wilbur Hall, he talked me into working part-time at the Boys Club in the games room. And I took that position. Mr. Humphrey, who was the director at that time, took an interest in me. Helped me in many ways. One was I was on the first Black Botillion that was held at the Geter Center. And he also helped me get into Ball State University. He gave me some type of direction, and I wasn't thinking of that at that time.
I had two grandfathers who came from the South, and they were raised on farms and worked in farms. But when they moved out of the South to Robbins, Illinois, which is where I was born and raised, they both opened up businesses. And so I worked for both of them. I worked for one of them on one day and worked for the other one on another day or 2 days. But I learned the business that you have to first of all, if you have a business, you got to have some people that want to buy. So you have to have a product. Secondly, you have to realize that people come into your store as the most important person right then. So you give them attention as a person who wants to buy your product. And I like the freedom, because they both had businesses where they were meeting people from different parts of the community where we lived. They knew almost everybody in the city, and they had services. One was a mechanic who worked on cars and trucks and whatnot, and the other one sold fruits and vegetables, because at that time Robbins didn't have a supermarket. And so my grandfather had a rolling supermarket. He would go to different places in the city selling vegetables and fruits and everything. So I liked that. And so when I came to Anderson, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to do what I had done as a young person. I wanted to be able to service people's needs. And so when I saw they didn't have it in music, because we had already done some surveys in Chicago, every black community that we went into had a beauty shop, barber shop, church, tavern, and a music store. Well, Anderson had those other ones, but they didn't have a music store. And since I had worked in the music industry, that's what inspired me to do it, and I'm glad I did. Okay.
Anderson Black Expo was formed in 1971. 71. And that I am involved with the Anderson Black Expo, and I've been on Anderson Black Expo for 52 years.
And they had an event called the Black Cultural Festival, which I remember, and I was probably between the ages of 6 and 9. And so the Black Cultural Festival, I think I'm correct on this, that it formed and basically was the groundwork for what we know now as the Indiana Black Expo. Because we would have just an amazing weekend festival with all the African arts. My dad would get us dashikis made, and it was just an amazing day of just celebrating who we are and the richness of it. from a cultural standpoint.
When I came out of high school in 75, you know, this was like everybody was wearing dashikis and afros and black power, and you know, it was right after the 1969 Olympics when they did, you know, the black power fist raise, and they they took their medals back. They took the black guys' medals back because they did that. So, and then it was the Vietnam War, and there was just a lot of things going on at that time, at that period in time. And I think that we children, we looked at our parents for the knowledge to help us through it.
During that time, in the 70s, we were right in the middle of the civil rights movement. Now, this goes before your time, but back in the times that black people were just waking up to their place in society, so to speak. And so it was a movement of people. And of course, in Chicago, it was very heavy. And of course, there was violence and there was a lot of things going on. But a lot of these young people that was coming into the Anderson community, the traditional black colleges were having many graduates that were being hired by General Motors to work in industry. Well, these people came and they had good jobs, making a good had a good income, and they had families, and they were bringing new ideas. Now, this is something that we saw early, is that not only are you physically able to do something, but there are ideas that you need to be thinking about. How can I influence my society by what I think and by what I say?
Once we moved to Anderson, that became a revolution with Malcolm X, even James Brown. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. And it changed my whole outlook. I became very proud of being black. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Back then we had a high school, our class was the first major black class to go to Madison Heights. And there were riots and fights every day. And we didn't have black history studies back then. So we boycotted the schools. And I played football also, so some of the football coaches tried to encourage me to come back to school and play football. But Mr. Ron Beard, he told me, do whatever you think is right. And I really appreciate him saying that to me. If I want to go back to school, that's on me. If I didn't want to go back to school, I have that option. So he was very encouraging.
All right, that's good. And then just to clarify, so you boycotted school because of the lack of black classes, or could you elaborate on that?
Okay, we boycotted the schools because we weren't accepted at the schools by other white students and things like that. And a lot of the girls got kicked out of school because they were wearing braids. There was no black history classes. And we didn't feel that the school administration would listen to us about what was going on. So we decided, the draw was when they kicked the black girls out of school for wearing braids, and we said enough is enough. So we boycotted Madison Heights for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. So eventually you did go back?
Oh, we went back in 2 weeks. We did. And we still didn't feel as though everything was resolved, but that was a start.
It was a start. That was a great start.
It was a start.
So did you notice anything, like you said nothing was resolved, but did you notice a sort of change after that? Like did they start listening and hearing you guys out more?
They started listening because when we boycotted, that affected the schools financially.
They don't get that government check?
No. They didn't. Because the schools received so much money per day per student that attended school that day. So they were forced to listen. And changes came about. Then they started having Black History Month 2 weeks out of the year, and I said, we start voicing our opinion again. That wasn't enough.
Back in that time, in the 1970s, Anderson had 11 black businesses. 11. You hear me? There was political involvement, the NAACP, the Urban League, connection with the city. There was youth services. They had a youth center on 14th Street, and then the Boys and Girls Clubs. And then there were a lot of miscellaneous involvement with the city. There was 2 Madison County policemen. Coming from Chicago, especially county police, you never saw any blacks on the county police force. Well, Anderson had two, a female and a male, and I thought that was very unique. And then they had all the organizations that make up a good community setting were already in place. So when we saw that, and the school system seemed to be good, they said, okay, this is where we want to be. And so that's what caused us to stay.
Well, I went to Anderson. Back then it was college, but now it's Anderson University. When I was at Anderson College, we had the march over the 8th Street Bridge, and it was mimicking the march in Alabama by Dr. Martin Luther King. So Anderson College students get together and they march from Anderson University all the way up to the courthouse. There's a lot of students that do that. You know, they carry flags of each state that they represent, and then they have signs that represent who they are and things like that. But this is an annual event, especially during Black History Month.
How did you feel about it?
Well, when it first started, I wasn't sure about it because when it first started in the mid-'70s, you know, we had a lot of black unrest back then. There was a lot of civil unrest back then. So, you know, I wasn't sure about who was involved and who I could trust and things like that. But it's really significant now for a lot of the African American students at Anderson University.
Well, I have to back up and talk about myself a little bit more. I'm very proud to say that in 1986, I was part of a group of ministers who formed a group known as the Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial Commission, and I became the chairman of the site. We purchased a site on the corner of Pendleton and Madison, and I was in charge of contracting with sculpture from Munson named Kenneth Boudin, and at that time we were honoring Dr. Martin Luther King, and we had a statue sculptured of him, and we had it erected, and we made that a park on the corner of Madison and Martin Luther King Boulevard. As you drive by now, if you look there, you'll see that statue. Probably have been by there several times. Probably many people probably haven't noticed it, but we were responsible for that park, and we unveiled the statue of Dr. King in that park in 1988. And we did fundraisers to raise the money to be able to build that park. I'm very proud of the park. And with the residual funds that we raised after we got the statue paid for and the sculpture paid for, we formed a Dr. Martin Luther King Scholarship Fund. And we invested the money, and for 20-some years, we awarded scholarships to African American students, to 3 students. We awarded a total of $10,000 to African American students each year. We did that for about 20 years till all of the funds were completed. I'm very, very proud of that.
I'll tell you a historical event. When they put up the Martin Luther King statue up on the corner up here, coming from the South and being conscious, you know, and to see that statue and know that a black man gave that property to the city to put that statue there, that was very historical. And to see the policemen across the street where the store is at now, making sure that everything was protected and stuff, and also to see and to meet Martin Luther King, who was his son. So that's one of the most historic events.
We got some brilliant people here, and not to say, you know, excellence is brilliant. It's just like we have a lot. I feel like actually we have everything we need, and for me, people whether they're educated or not, I think excellence lies within all of us. It's a matter of being present to it. And I think as a whole, I don't think we're present to our excellence. And as a possibility, once we get present to it, or the majority of us, maybe our neighborhoods and our city will start looking different.
When I think about Black excellence, I think about Kim Townsend and the Anderson Housing Authority, and how it must have been a privilege to grow up in her household with her dad and her mom. Her mom is really out of sight in her own right with Gospel Music Workshop of America. Her dad, who fought for rights for people of color and just people, period. So to me, that's Black excellence. Black excellence is Zebedee Christian, who was the first Black on the Anderson City Council. Black excellence. Black excellence is Josh McGrady, who owned a tree trimming service, who happened to be my mother's nephew. And that's Black excellence, owning your own business. My mom and dad, who came from Troy, Alabama, not because they wanted to come, but because they were kind of asked to leave, I'll say that nicely, and came to Anderson and started their own business, the Busy Bee Restaurant, which a lot of people my sister's age, 75, 79 years old, they know about the Busy Bee. So to me, that's Black excellence. Black excellence is when you can have something in your neighborhood and you share it. That's Black excellence.
I stand on the shoulders, like I say, of my mom and my dad, and my uncles and aunts and other people in the community, like Mama Pearl. And then we had a man that they just eulogized Monday, Mr. Jesse Johnson. He was part of the community here in Anderson. He was a real estate in early years. He was a realtor. He also owned the building that he ran his business from. He was a club owner. He was a club owner. And the building that it still sits right now, if you leave this place and go to Madison Avenue and turn down 16th Street to your right there on the corner of Madison and Locust, it's a sign up there says Sinbad's, and it was a tavern. But that originally was owned by Mr. Jess Johnson, his wife, Miss Mary Johnson. It was called the Cedar Lounge because it's on Cedar Street. And that was there. And then eventually he sold it, and the name became the El Morocco, and then they sold it again, and it was Sinbad's. But he was a realtor. He was a Black realtor, and he was very adamant, the way that, back in the day when people in this community, especially Black people, were able to buy certain property and businesses and things like that. And so you had him. You had another man in the community. His name was Mr. Harper. He was initial in helping some Blacks get hired by General Motors at the time and things like that. I can give you a bunch of history. And those are the people, in my community that I remember as a child. You have Mrs. Marietta Wright. She was older, she's deceased, and they were part of the community that worked with the youth, that did Girl Scout troops and things like that. And another lady, Miss Daisy Golston, and those ladies, and that worked in the community center when the community center used to be over there, down that way. But those are things, that you think about, and at least I think about and remember about my community. And about the culture here in Anderson. And another thing about the culture here in Anderson that I loved and agreed with, but it had to do with generations, and that is everybody knew and respected everybody within the Black culture and everything, and you knew each other, and families knew each other, and you were respected. Yeah. You were respected, yeah.
I started DJing when I was 13 years old, and of course I'm 58. I started doing it because I watched a person on TV named Grandmaster Flash doing it one time, and after that I fell in love with it, and I never stopped doing it.
I was a different kind of little kid. When I was 4 or 5, I could tell you what I was going to do. I could tell you where I was going to go to school. Yeah, I was inspired by those cartoons I watched. It was fascinating to me, the stuff that they could do and how they could create things and how they defied gravity, all those things. How do all those things happen? You know, so those are, yeah, I guess I had a different type of mind. I didn't see just a cartoon like the other little kids. I saw a lot of things happening, and I wanted to know how they happened. How did this car go? Well, how did the Jetsons fly? How are we going to live in the sky? I had all those questions. One of the things I did was I created a crystallographic structure for vanadium pentoxide. It had been theorized, but nobody could create the structure. So I came up with a method and process to actually create the structure. Yeah, when I think back, to me it was really simple. It was just understanding energy and what we call Schrodinger's equation. And Schrodinger's equation holds the key to the universe, everything.
Wow.
Once you understand it. Yeah.
I went to all black grade schools and all black high schools. Not only that, the books we had in my schools had been passed down from the white schools with the kids' names still in them. I had some teachers who graduated from HBCU schools, you know, like Tennessee State, like Morehouse. They graduated and they told us, you can be anything you want to be. Can you imagine? You can be anything. You can be anything, really? We believed them. And 95% of the kids that graduated from that high school went to college. Not only went, but graduated. That's the kind of background I have, where you just don't give up. You don't just decide, well, I'll just settle for this. You can't do that. You have to keep moving. You have to keep looking for new ways to develop yourself and make yourself useful for your community.
Miss Matilda Barber. She has been a registered nurse in our community for a very, very long time. I could see how she was involved in the community. I could see how she interacted well with others. And it made me feel like there are things that I could do that I thought that I could not do.
I graduated nurse in Tuskegee University, and I also worked in Milwaukee at the VA hospital as a nursing instructor and in-service education director at the VA hospital in Milwaukee. So when I came here, I really hadn't planned on working, because I think I told you I wanted at least 6 children. I only had 2. So I thought, well, I'll just take care of the kids, stay home, take care of the kids. And made a mistake to take them to Dr. Bridges' office. He was a very good doctor, very good medical doctor. And his classmate that I had taken my kids to in Milwaukee had told me all about him, because they had gone to school together, they had graduated from medical school together. So they told him, Dr. Bridges, all about the kids, what they needed. And he had their records as well. So he knew what they had, what medication they have had, what shots they've had, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I felt sorry for him and started working, which I hadn't planned on working. I told my husband, we're just gonna relax here in Anderson and have children and enjoy life. I was instrumental in being able to get the children clinic started. We had lots of children that needed services, and they did not have the money to pay for the service. And I would see these children down in the emergency room and felt so sorry for them. So I went to Sister Mary Brooks, she was still there, and asked if we could start a children's clinic. She said, well, you want to start a children's clinic? I said, yes, sister, I do, because a lot of these children that I see that come to our emergency room, they need help, but they don't have the money to pay for it, and they don't have insurance to pay for it. So we need a children's clinic here in Anderson. And she said, well, you mean they're going to come get free services here? I don't know if that will work here in Anderson. I said, let's try it. Let's try it. So the school of nursing was located in Madonna Hall. The school of nursing had closed. Madonna Hall was available. I said, let's see if we can get some of our pediatricians or some of our medical doctors to come and help us out. And let's see if we can start a free children's clinic. A free children's clinic. She said, that sounds good. I hope we can do it. But I got some reservations about it. I said, well, talk to Dr. Bridges. He got so many people in his clinic that he can't see them all. You know, he's just so busy. See if he could help us out. And Dr. Kepner, a couple of the doctors that I had talked to about seeing that. Sure enough, we were able to get, and a lot of my nurses that I had trained in the Holy Cross School of Nursing, and several that I had hired, agreed to volunteer their services on a Wednesday night to come, have those children come in, and we'll take care of them free of charge.
Shirley Weatherly, phenomenal woman. She just represented what a strong black woman should be, and just to see her, she was a nurse. She also was over the HUD office for many years. I want to say she was, I believe, I can't quote me, but I believe she was an Eastern Star, but her family was heavy in the Masonic realm, and Peerless Lodge. She was a cool dresser, but she was just, and they had buses they called Weatherly Tours, where they would take people places and, you know, to do things out of Anderson and that kind of thing, that her was part family owned. And she was just, like I said, the epitome of a strong black woman. That was a good impression for me.
Anthony Malone is a very good friend of mine as far as that is concerned. He was very positive, and he did a lot of things, and basically what he said he was going to do, he did. Well, you would know about Madison County Health Center. He established it, and basically I worked very closely with him to try to make sure that we had health facilities that everybody could afford.
I've coached many kids in basketball. Some have gone on to be Indiana All-Star. A few of them became professionals in the NBA. I will tell you a story of one guy who should be historical in a way, and that is Elliot Beard. Elliot Beard didn't play in the high school ball or anything. He played basketball for me at the boys club, and we were able to get him into Malcolm X College in Chicago. He played a couple years there. Then he went on to Oberlin College, played 2 years there. Then he was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, I mean, this is a kid that didn't play in high school ball, went on to get drafted in the NBA, and that is special for this city. But other than that, I coached Jeff Teague. He played professionally. I coached Bonzi Wells from Muncie. He played professional. I coached Dana Wilkerson. She played professionally. And there may be some others, but I lost touch with them along the way.
I refer to her as Mama Pearl, but Mrs. Pearl Johnson Alexandra. She was a businesswoman here in town, plus a very close friend of my family. Matter of fact, growing up, we lived right across the street from each other. but she was a thriving businesswoman here. She owned and ran a beauty salon, and her last establishment, the business, the building still stands. If you go to Madison Avenue, and right there before you cross the railroad track, and it says Davis Beauty, that was, she built that. She built that. That was called Pearl's Beauty Castle. Okay. She was the original owner. She was a very good example to me. She was, and the other 4 women that I look towards as being the most influential people in my life was my mother, my grandmother, and my 2 aunts.
One of the number one persons that I talked to was a man by the name of Jess Johnson. He was a realtor and an entrepreneur. He not only did he sell houses and rent houses and whatnot, but also he had other businesses that he was involved in. So I told him my idea. He encouraged me. He said, look, whatever you need, you let me know. And he directed me to people that could help me, because he's the one that set up the fact of us renting a store that had been closed for a number of years. He said, I can get you a good rental on that. And we went and took a look at it. We couldn't see if was there any hope for this store. You know, I mean, here it was on the west side of Anderson, had been closed. All the refrigeration systems were broken. The counters were broken, an old cash register. It looked hopeless. But he encouraged me. He said, look, the lady will give you a good rental. And so he did set up a fact where I could talk to the owner of it. And she said, look, I'll rent it to you at a real cheap price, but I don't want to do anything. If you make any improvements, it's going to be on you. That means we had to refurbish the whole place. And then I met the doctors. There was 2 doctors here in the west side. They were encouragement. A dentist who was an encouragement. The community organizations that were going on, when I talked to the leaders, they get encouragement. Yes, we need that, because people were going to Indianapolis to buy music. And so here I was providing something that people were busy with right here locally. So I had encouragement from all the black leaders that I knew and respected that I should step out, and so that was a plus. Okay.
I would say the biggest influence in terms of being an elder would be my grandfather, and that goes all the way back to when I was a kid. And what he taught me, the number of things that he taught me, first and foremost, I would say he taught me to be a good, upstanding young man. And I had a wonderful father who was also a wonderful role model, so I don't mean to disparage that, but what I got to see from my grandfather that I didn't see from any other black man, to be honest with you, was his ability to work in the community at large and always be respected no matter who was talking to him. He was the first councilman, black Madison County councilman elected, and it was back in the 70s. Honestly, I wish I knew exactly when. I was a kid. But we would go to all these functions all over Madison County, and it was amazing to me because it didn't matter who these people were. They always referred to him as Mr. Jackson. And as a kid, that just meant so much because I didn't see any other black adults, men especially, who were referred to as Mr. and by everyone, you know. And he just taught me that through his hard work, his willingness to go into communities where you might think, oh, he's not going to be welcome there. He would walk right into those communities and introduce himself and say, I'm here to help. What can I do? And it just showed me that, you know, if I work hard, if I'm willing to go into the uncomfortable situation sometime and just offer, you know, I'm here, what can I do? That then hopefully someday I would have that kind of respect that he got too. And so that as you asked me as an elder, he was by far the biggest influence in my life. When I got to see him doing the political stuff, his county councilman stuff, it was always about helping others. I mean, that was really the thing that I got to see from him. And as I mentioned, when he would do the campaigning, and even once he got in there, he was always out and about and asking people what they needed, what can the council do, what can he do. And and how could he help? And when I say that, again, I'm not saying he was only doing it for the black community. Yes, he was doing it for the black community. He was doing it for the entire county. And it's, again, as a young kid, I'm talking, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that age. I don't really remember all the ins and outs, but the impression that was left with me was this man is out there helping people. And it impressed me.
It's a network of people. It's like redwood trees. Get big, but their roots are short, but their roots connect to others. That's how I view the community. That's how it got to be. You got to be strong, and not only strong, you got to rely on others for survival. Because you got to. We could do a lot alone, but to conquer the world, you're gonna need a community.
This is where I from, first and foremost. This is where I've built my legacy. This is where I carry on legacies of those that came before me. Madison County is me.
There's nothing stopping us here. You really can do whatever you want to do and be whatever you want to be. I would have, at your age, never dreamed that I would sit on the city council. And there was nothing stopping me. There's nothing stopping you from running for office, from doing the best you can in school, and taking things seriously and planning your life, because all the old sayings are true. If you make your bed hard, you won't got to sleep in it. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was a silly saying, but I understand now that I'm grown that they're right. You get to do what you want to do and make your life what you want it to be. There's nothing holding you back in Anderson. You can find what you love doing and do it, just like coming to this building. This building would have been torn down if people hadn't have fought for it. Reverend Dixon and another pastor, this whole building, this used to be a school. And it was sitting empty for years. And this is a whole nother show on what they do with old school buildings. But he went to the school system and he said, I want that building, and there's rules and laws on how you can get the building. And they said, okay, you can use it. We're not gonna give it to you, but you can use it. And he was a contractor, and he worked, and he worked, and he did stuff on his own, and he got volunteers. Him and another pastor named Pastor Streeter. They put together a committee, they got their board together, now mind you, following all these rules and regulations, but they did it. And they owe everything to him, because this building would have probably rotted if it hadn't been for those two men, because they fought, they got community support, and there's a lot of other stuff that went on, but they're the ones that got the ball rolling that allowed this place to still be in existence today. But we're only here today because of those two men who stepped out, and they did a lot on their own, out their own pocket, used their own money, and got volunteers to work for either nothing or little. And you got to read a lot of your history to know how people got as far as they got. Everything wasn't, when you go to do something extraordinary, it's a battle. No one is standing there and saying, oh yeah, that's a great idea. To let the, young people have this and have some place for the youth, and nobody's standing at the door waiting on great ideas.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you can come through that door and open it.
I'm proud that I've accomplished to remain here at the Anderson Impact Center for 12 years, to see projects like this come to fruition. Anytime we start something, it's usually just an idea. But I'm proud to see that I work in a community where people are willing to come together for the greater good and to use their gifts and their talents and their skills. to serve others collectively. So this is a proud moment for me to be able to interface with so many different people on so many different levels to figure out how do we create something great for our community.
We're building a community center type atmosphere where there'll be programs for the youth, young adults, and seniors, right? Something for everybody in a centralized location with access. You know, that's what we really need.
Well, you know what? We have a lot, like I said, we have a lot of talent right here in Anderson. And sometimes people just need their start. It could be at a small venue, just like I have, where singing a song, you know, and everybody started at one place soon or another, whether it's, and so giving them that platform. And my thing, it's important for me to utilize my own individuals in my community that we have, you know, with our talent. That play, you know, for me, to see all those people come to that play and to support that cast, you know, this was a group, we don't have a lot of black theater here in Anderson. So it was nice to see black cast there. You know, we deserve to be on the stage as well, you know, and not always in the back.
I'm a member of the Black Nurses Association, Anderson Black Nurses Association. And May Gray, who was my student, she was my student, my nursing student. She is now head of the Black Nurses Association. And we're very active in the community as well.
Community to me is the West Side Community Center, where Marietta Wright was there, and she had the Girl Scouts or the senior program. And we knew that those people actually cared about us, and we have to get back to that.
Kenneth Moore has owned and operated Turning Heads Barbershop for 20 plus years. And this is a guy who has been my barber since we were in like 6th grade. So to see him continuing and turn that into a career that's prosperous for him, in my opinion, is black excellence. Another friend of mine, Edward Nunn, started a trucking business out of nowhere. I think I'm going to start a trucking business, and it's very fruitful for him. This is a guy who has been known all over the world for bodybuilding, to retire from bodybuilding and go into his own business of starting a trucking company. Minority Health Coalition is doing amazing work here in the city. Just seeing these people, Dr. Treva Bostic has opened Cultured Urban Winery. That's the only winery in the state of Indiana where she can make, bottle, and sell her own wine in her own shop. Is phenomenal. I mean, these are examples of black excellence that I see in our community.
You know, for me, a goal of mine is revitalizing, being a part of revitalizing downtown. So being able to have my business there, taking care of my little block, the street with my other business neighbors, you know, cleaning up, you know. I want people, when they come to Anderson and come downtown, to see this is a place that I want to go for entertainment, just to go to have fun. And so for me, it's important to keep my little area clean and give a place where they can have a nice ambiance and atmosphere, and I take great pride in that.
I work at the Crossing School, which I'm the site leader there, so I have a lot of involvement with the community as well as the students there. I also am the secretary for the national, for the NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, right here in Madison County. And I work with different community organizations, just trying to bring awareness throughout our community, bring resources throughout our community, and help wherever I can.
I love being involved in our community. One of the reasons that I wanted to be a teacher, even when I was a youngster, was being a part of this community was so much fun as a kid. I grew up here. There were so many opportunities for me, and then I kind of fell in love with the idea of becoming a teacher. And then when I went off to college to do all the training for that, and a job just happened to open up in Anderson Community Schools, and I jumped at it and just really hoped that I could be here at home, so that I could again become a part of this community and be active in it. And I feel like then, to answer the first part of the question, the biggest way I feel like I'm active and involved in our community is through teaching, because I get a chance to work with so many of our young people. And I mean, all of our young people come with so much. I mean, some come with needs, some come with desires, some come with skills that they already have and aren't aware of. And I feel like that I'm able to contribute a lot by helping them reach whatever it is that they're reaching for, and sometimes even maybe aiming them for something they weren't even aware that they could reach for.
I have a lot of mentors. One of the mentors that I had was Carrie Mae Hyatt of Carrie Mae Hyatt Food Pantry. When I was a teenager, she told me, "You're going to work in the community," and I always, looked at her kind of weird. I didn't know what she was talking about, but it came to be. And I do the same thing that she did. We run a food pantry. And then there are people like William Raymore, who happens to be Kim Townsend's dad. And he was a big person in my life that always steered me in the right direction and made me want to do in community. And then there was Mac Reese, who always encouraged me. So it was a lot of people. I can tell you another inspirational person was my mom, Lois Collier, and Perry Collier. My mother only had a 7th grade education, and my dad only had a 3rd grade education. So they made sure that my brother and my sister and I had what we needed and made sure that we had an education. So they are really my heroes in all of this. My mother, right now, where the Queens have a community garden at, my mother gardened there for 50 years. So I go there about every day to meditate because I can feel her presence there. And when she had the garden, they would give vegetables out to the neighborhood. My mom was from Troy, Alabama, so that's what they did. They gardened, they had farms and stuff, and when people didn't have things, they shared with them. I think we could learn from that.
This place right here is a perfect example of it. What can happen when you let people of color do something and thrive? The Queens of the Court, that's a good example too.
Well, the Queen started in 2019. Actually, it was just my birthday. We were going to have a celebration on September the 20th. So one night I was asleep and I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to have birthday parties. We're going to call it the Gathering of the Queens. And that's really how that came about. And I was attending Wallace Temple, Amy Zion Church, and we had it on their grounds. And I was expecting maybe 50 to 75 people. It was more than 150 women. Wow. So that let us know that women really are hungry for things to do and to connect with one another. So at the end of the evening, we had some special guests, and after they spoke and we ate and laughed, played games, had fun, then the next thing you know, they were like, I was like, I'll see you later, see you in the spring. And they were like, no, you're gonna see us now. So the next day my phone blew up and my daughter had to take it. And then what happened was, in about a month, we went to the National Underground Railroad in Cincinnati. We went to Papados, and we just really had a good time. A lot of the women explained to me that if it were not for that trip, they would have never gotten to go to Papados, or they would have never went and gotten to go to the National Underground Railroad. So it let us know that the ministry was needed.
So it seems like this group has opened a bunch of opportunities for women. And you've spoken about how you do food.
We not only do food, the first thing we do is minister.
Okay.
So that means that whatever we do, we start off in prayer. We have a lot of women that come to us for different situations, and we mentor them, we speak with them, spend a lot of time with them. We found that in 2020 and COVID that we didn't have a grocery store. So people were suffering, especially mothers with children, and especially on the west side of Anderson, Indiana. So we decided that we would couple with some of my minister friends in Indianapolis at Jones Tabernacle and Zion Church, and they were doing a drive-through mobile market. So I used to own a daycare, so we'd take the daycare bus and go down and get 25 boxes and bring them to the corner of Nickel and Rabel. And that's how we started the food insecurity and addressing it.
Like what Marilyn's doing down here. Now, Marilyn went, and I put her in the black category, even though it's a very diverse group she's got going on now. But when she first started, she was basically a handful of just the volunteers. But she was strong because she wasn't welcomed with open arms, you know. Oh yeah, come on in here and sit down, we'll give you everything you need. She has had to fight for it. Now, Sherry, being the director, opened the door for her. That may not have happened had Sherry not been black. Marilyn may have been stopped at the door to say, I'm sorry, we can't do this because it won't allow us. They are, not they, but there's always rules to stop people from doing what they want to do. But Marilyn, when Sherry allowed her to come in that room, Marilyn did not give up.
One of our pillars in our 4-phase plan for the Queens was to be able to have transportation, to be able to take people off of the west side or whatever side of town and take them to a grocery store because we didn't have one. Well, tomorrow, Hoosier Park is donating the Queens a bus so that they can take seniors, mothers, people to the grocery store. And we are choosing places like Walmart or Myers because they're one-stop shops. And then not only do they get to do that, but then they'll be able to eat lunch together. So we're calling it the Lunch Bunch. And we're also going to use that bus in our community. We have a backpack project, and we encourage literacy, kids to read books, build their own library. Well, with this bus, not only will we be able to service seniors, but we'll be able to take books out into the community and give kids books right in their own neighborhood, and to also give them treats and snacks, because we want them to know that when you see these pink shirts, that we're serious about community and that they can find a safe place in us. I think first of all, we have to have a relationship with young people, because young people are our future. And I'm always encouraging you guys, come to the pantry, work in the pantry, because I'm getting older, the Queens are getting older, so we work so other young people can come and take it over and help our community grow. Right now I see our community as kind of in a state of, we just don't know what to do. So we need people who stand up and are examples, so that it will be kind of like a fire. It'll catch on, and we'll help each other and help the community.
We need educated young people to stay in this city, to build this city.
I think there's positive change. There is positive change. I think there's more positive change on individual bases. I'm not going to necessarily give that opinion to our political machine or our religious machine or anything like that. But I have seen lots of changes generationally with the younger individuals that are coming along, and I think it's a very positive thing. We've got several young people of color here in the community that are moving it forward, and I think that's definitely a positive.
I think we all have to have that ownership, each and every one of us. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to run for an office or that you have to be the most popular person in the world or that you gotta have, 25 zillion likes on Facebook. It's not about that. But it's about doing everything you can possibly do, because it only takes one person to affect a real change, because what you do affects so many other people, and as you get older, it definitely will. I'm not going to say I affected anybody in the community, but I feel like what I have tried to instill in my children and grandchildren, and then to come the great-grandchildren, that was important. One tradition that I've always instilled when my children turned 18, I took them to the voters registration office and got them their voters registration card. The first time they voted, I went with them. The grandkids, same thing.
And that's the big thing to me, the opportunity that the younger generation has today in Anderson and Madison County is pretty huge, because we have some excellent corporations that hire a huge amount of people, and they're like, they can't find enough qualified people. And if you can apply yourself, stay drug-free, put your nose to the grindstone, really, the sky's the limit here for you in Anderson, Madison County.
My grandmother used to always say, when you think you know everything, you stop learning anything. And so I would just impart upon the youth to be patient with us old heads, with us OGs, as you call us. But be patient with us and realize that we really do have something important to share. And it may not affect your life right then and there, but later in your life it will.
Decide what you're going to want to do. Decide what you want to do. Lay down the steps that you need to accomplish that goal and just do it. And if you feel like you can't, reach out to someone for support. And that's where those upstanding, hardworking people in your community can be there to support you.
To do the best you can.
So I want to encourage each and every one of you to keep up everything that you're doing, stay involved, and reach your goals, because you have the potential to reach any goal that you set for yourself. The only person that can set limits for you is you. It does not matter what anybody else thinks, or it doesn't matter what anybody else says. If you know that you're doing the right thing for the right reasons and you're determined to reach that goal, you will accomplish it.
Surround yourself with other positive people, and that includes your family as well. If they're negative, you need to love them from a distance, because you're going to attract, you want to attract people that are thinking like you, that are more positive, And sometimes our family don't do that, and we have to we still can love them, but we need to be around other positive people, so that that's going to encourage you, and so that you can pursue those goals of what you have. But you have to start with an action plan, and not only do you dream about it, you have to write down those dreams.
I like to see young people participate in community activities, and I'm so happy to see the young people here today, that you are learning what us old folks have done, what we've been through, and how we have been able to respond to help this community grow. I want each of you to know that I am so proud to see you today, and to see that you are and you're doing something to learn more about this community and working with the people in this community, so that you can be leaders, great leaders, and continue to work in this community. I appreciate that.
One of the things I'm proud of your generation, this project that you guys are working on, talking to community members, asking us what it means. This is an amazing thing. And when I first heard that you guys were involved, and I didn't really know the ins and outs, but I heard about it, I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. And I've had a chance to see a little bit of what you're doing. This is amazing what you guys are doing. So I'm very proud of the work that your group of people here, you young people, I'm very proud of this effort that you're doing on this. I think it's very important.